Security Officer Harlan Reese blocked the well-dressed black woman at the federal building entrance. "Your kind has no place in this building," he said coldly. "One word from me and I could make you disappear." The woman remained motionless, her expression unreadable as she reached into her purse and produced an identification card, extending it with steady fingers. Reese snatched it, studied it for a moment, then tossed it to the floor with a smirk. "Pick it up," he commanded, watching as she slowly bent to retrieve her ID. "I don't care what fake ID you have. This is a secure federal facility." He gestured to a small table beside the security checkpoint. "Empty your purse. Everything." His eyes flicked dismissively toward other employees, all white, who streamed past without inspection. The woman methodically removed each item, arranging them with precise movements while Reese hovered, scrutinizing every object with exaggerated suspicion. As she carefully repacked her belongings, she looked directly into Reese's eyes. "Do you know who I am?" she asked, her voice quiet but clear. Reese laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the lobby. Just another nobody trying to be somebody. Little did he know she was about to become his worst nightmare. Lena Harper stepped through the revolving doors of the Philadelphia FBI field office. The newly appointed director had chosen business casual attire, charcoal slacks and a navy blouse, deliberately understated. Today wasn't about flashing credentials or pulling rank. It was about seeing operations as they truly functioned when leadership wasn't expected. Officer Reese stood at his post, years of security service hanging from his belt in the form of an overpolished badge. His eyes tracked Lena the moment she entered, narrowing slightly as she approached. This wasn't his first encounter with someone who didn't fit his mental image of who belonged. "ID and purpose of visit," he demanded without the courtesy of eye contact. Reese's mind raced with assumptions. What was she doing here without an escort? Probably lost. Maybe cleaning staff who didn't know which entrance to use. A quick series of flashes, memory fragments from Reese's personnel file that would later surface. Multiple complaints of excessive screening dismissed over the years. One formal grievance mysteriously deleted from the system. A pattern, systematic and undeniable. To Reese's right, a white businessman approached security. "Morning, Harlan," Reese called, waving him through with a cursory glance at his badge. "How's that golf swing coming along?" A white woman followed, her purse uninspected as Reese buzzed her through with a smile. "Have a good one, Ms. Roberts." Reese turned back to Lena, his expression hardening. He beckoned to his partner at the adjacent station. "Hey, Grant, got another one trying to slip through," he said, just loud enough for Lena to hear. "Probably cleaning staff who doesn't know her place." Grant glanced up, a flicker of discomfort crossing his features before he shrugged noncommittally. Reese slid Lena's ID back across the counter. As she reached for it, he deliberately let it fall to the floor between them. His eyes locked with hers, challenging, expectant. As Lena bent to retrieve her ID, Reese didn't realize he had just committed career suicide. Lena rose slowly, ID card pinched between her fingers. Her movements were deliberate, dignified, each second stretched taut with unspoken tension. She met Reese's gaze, her expression revealing nothing of the calculated assessment happening behind her eyes. "May I have your name and badge number, please?" Her voice carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being heard the first time. Reese scoffed, his hand moving to cover his identification badge. "Why? So you can file a complaint that'll never be read." The fluorescent lights caught the sweat beading along his hairline despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Grant shifted his weight from one foot to another, eyes darting between Lena and his partner. His discomfort was palpable, but his silence was complicity distilled to its essence. "I have an appointment," Lena stated. No defensiveness in her tone, just simple fact. "With who?" Reese demanded, reaching for the desk phone. He deliberately misspelled her name as he called, watching her with performative suspicion. "No Lena Harper on today's list," he announced after a cursory conversation. "No appointment exists." "Check again," Lena suggested. "Perhaps under Director Harper." Reese's laugh came too quickly, too loudly. "Listen, there's no appointment. You need to leave now or I'll have you removed for trespassing." His hand drifted toward his weapon, an unconscious tell of escalation. From across the lobby, a young analyst named Jordan Reyes looked up from a file, recognition dawning across their face. A memo had circulated recently, Director Harper conducting surprise inspections throughout the month. Jordan took a half step forward, then hesitated, mentally calculating personal risk against moral obligation. "I'm not leaving," Lena said, her voice level despite Reese's growing agitation. "I have legitimate business here." Reese stepped around the security desk, invading her space. "That's it, I'm calling backup to remove you from the premises." His voice rose, designed to create a scene and frame Lena as the aggressor. "You're making a mistake," she said. Not a plea, but a warning. Reese's radio was already in his hand. "We'll see about that. You have very little time to step aside, or I promise you'll regret ever putting on that badge." Security backup to main entrance, belligerent trespasser refusing to comply. Reese's voice crackled through the radio, his eyes never leaving Lena's face. He gestured toward a hard plastic chair positioned against the wall. Sit now. Lena evaluated her options with clinical precision. Creating a scene served no purpose. Documenting this encounter served many. She took the seat, back straight, hands folded in her lap as curious eyes turned toward the unfolding spectacle. Attempting to infiltrate a federal building, Reese announced loudly for the benefit of passing employees, claims to have an appointment that doesn't exist. Grant approached, lowering his voice. Maybe we should run her credentials more thoroughly, check the database again. Back to your post, Reese snapped. I've got this handled. Lena noted the exact time on the lobby clock. Reese made her wait. He processed other visitors during this period, most white, a few Asian, all with minimal screening, all while she sat in public view like a cautionary exhibit. Stand up, Reese finally commanded, retrieving latex gloves from his station with theatrical slowness. Enhanced security check. Lena rose, maintaining neutral eye contact as Reese circled her. Remove your jacket. Shoes, too. His voice carried just enough for nearby visitors to turn and stare. People like you are known to conceal items. The phrase people like you hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lena complied, cataloging each violation, each witness, each camera angle with methodical precision. Arms out. Reese's gloved hands moved along her sides, lingering inappropriately at her ribs. Standard procedure, he added with a smirk that suggested otherwise. A rustle of movement broke the tension. Jordan approached carrying a paper cup of water, extending it toward Lena with nervous determination. Thought you might need this, Jordan said, leaning in to whisper, I know who you are. Lena accepted the water with a subtle shake of her head. Stand down, her eyes communicated what her position could not. Reese intercepted, knocking the cup from Lena's hand. Water splashed across the polished floor. You don't interact with suspects, he barked at Jordan. Return to your workspace or I'll report you for interfering with security protocol. Throughout the humiliation, Lena's gaze systematically cataloged faces, name badges, witnesses, the security camera in the northeast corner, the timestamp on the digital display, the receptionist averting her eyes in shame. She wasn't just enduring this moment, she was preserving it, preparing it for the record. Put your shoes back on, Reese finally said. As he turned to retrieve his radio, it crackled to life with his supervisor's urgent voice. Reese, report to Station 2 for package inspection. The radio fell silent, leaving Reese visibly annoyed at the interruption. Don't move, he ordered Lena before stalking away. In his absence, Lena made her move, not from panic or desperation, but with the calculated precision of someone accustomed to contingency planning. She reached into her jacket pocket, extracting her phone with subtle efficiency. 3 letters comprised her text to her executive assistant, XRY. Nothing more was needed, protocol established on her first day as director. Across town at FBI headquarters, Assistant Director Coleman's phone vibrated. Her expression shifted from routine bureaucratic fatigue to sharp focus. She reached for a secure line, initiating a series of predetermined actions. No questions asked, no confirmation needed. Reese returned, his stride purposeful, eyes narrowed with renewed suspicion. In here, he directed, gesturing toward a windowless security office. Now. The room was small, utilitarian, with a metal desk and 2 chairs bolted to the floor. Reese closed the door with a deliberate click. Phone, he demanded, palm outstretched. Security procedure. Lena surrendered the device, already having sent what was necessary. Reese placed it in a metal drawer, locking it with theatrical emphasis. You know, he said, his voice dropping to a confidential register as he leaned against the desk. People who don't belong disappear all the time in our system. Paperwork gets lost. Access gets denied. His smile didn't reach his eyes. No one would even look for someone like you. When Reese exited to retrieve forms, Lena's gaze immediately located the security camera in the upper corner. She positioned herself precisely in its view, facing the lens directly. Officer Reese has threatened that people who don't belong disappear all the time, she stated clearly, reciting his exact words for the record. He further stated, no one would even look for someone like you, while confiscating my personal property and detaining me without cause. Her eyes caught the landline phone on the desk. She lifted the receiver, dialing a number from memory. Authentication code 8736 Delta, she stated when the line connected. Silent protocol, field office, Philadelphia security desk, no intervention. She replaced the receiver just as Reese's footsteps approached. The scene split, Lena sitting composed in the barren room while across the city her executive team mobilized with practiced efficiency. Assistant Director Coleman notified Deputy Director Victor Lang, who accessed the security feed. Within minutes, senior FBI officials were watching Reese's every action in real time, recording every word, every gesture. Lang's finger hovered over the intervention button, then withdrew. He recognized Lena's strategy. She wasn't just experiencing discrimination. She was documenting a systemic failure from the inside. Let it play out, he ordered, per the director's instruction. Reese returned, smiling, unaware that every federal official who could end his career was now watching. He slapped a sheaf of papers onto the metal desk, the sound sharp in the confined space. Detention documentation, he announced with bureaucratic satisfaction. You failed to meet security clearance requirements for this facility. He slid the forms toward Lena, tapping a signature line at the bottom. Sign here. Acknowledges you were denied entry for noncompliance with federal security protocols. Lena scanned the document, immediately identifying the waiver of rights buried in the legal language. I'm not signing this, she stated simply. Reese's jaw tightened momentarily before his features arranged themselves into mock concern. He reached for his coffee cup, positioned precariously close to the desk's edge with a movement too deliberate to be accidental. His elbow nudged it. Dark liquid splashed across Lena's cream-colored blouse. Clumsy me, Reese said, producing a handful of rough paper napkins. Let me help you with that. Lena accepted the napkins without reaction, dabbing at the spreading stain while maintaining unwavering eye contact. Thank you, she said, each syllable precisely measured. The door opened. A man in a crisp suit appeared, his ID badge identifying him as Office Manager Amir Khan. Is there an issue here? Khan asked, eyes moving between Reese and Lena with professional concern. Security matter, Reese replied curtly. Not your department. This woman has been detained for quite some time, Khan persisted. Has her identity been verified through the central database? Reese's posture shifted subtly, a predator sensing a challenge to territorial dominance. Maybe I should review your access credentials, Khan, see if they're still appropriate. The threat hung in the air, naked and effective. Khan's resolve visibly wavered, his gaze dropping. Just following up on unusual activity reports, he muttered, already retreating. I'll find you later, Reese called after him, the promise unmistakable. At FBI headquarters, the command room buzzed with focused activity. Analysts pulled Reese's personnel file, revealing multiple similar incidents over the course of his employment. Each complaint mysteriously closed without action, each connected through a labyrinth of bureaucratic misdirection to the same security contractor, SecureLink Services. Back in the small room, Reese turned to Lena, all pretense of professionalism abandoned. Now they were alone. Your kind always thinks the rules don't apply, always looking for special treatment. His voice dropped lower. But I'm here to make sure everybody gets exactly what they deserve. You know what happens to troublemakers in custody? Reese whispered, leaning too close. They have accidents. I need medical attention, Lena announced, one hand pressed against her chest. My heart is racing. I'd like a witness present. Reese studied her for signs of deception, his eyes narrowing. Convenient timing. No one's falling for that act. I'm not acting, Lena responded evenly, and denying medical care to a detainee is a violation of Section 4.7 of the Federal Security Protocols. Reese's surprise at her knowledge flickered briefly across his face before his mask of authority returned. Claiming medical distress to obstruct security procedures, he said, making a show of writing this down. Possible psychological instability noted. He was creating a paper trail, building his justification brick by careful brick. Lena observed this with the detached interest of someone watching a predictable play unfold exactly as anticipated. The door opened again. Officer Grant entered, uncertainty written in the hesitant set of his shoulders. Any update on the verification? He asked, deliberately not looking at Lena. Still processing, Reese responded tersely. Why don't you make yourself useful and go monitor the east entrance? Grant shifted his weight, uncomfortably aware of his choices narrowing. Look, maybe we should just let her go with a warning. It's been some time. Are you questioning my judgment? Reese's voice rose, calculated public humiliation deployed as a control mechanism. Because I can add insubordination to today's report if that's what you want. Grant's spine straightened momentarily before collapsing into acquiescence. No, just checking in. Then check out, Reese dismissed him with a flick of his wrist. As Grant retreated, Reese turned his attention to Lena's purse, still on the desk between them. Time for additional screening. He upended the bag, personal items cascading across the metal surface. His fingers sifted through her possessions with invasive deliberation. A wallet, keys, a protein bar, a small notebook. At the bottom, a plastic card with the FBI logo caught his attention. Well, well, he said, holding it up. Fake federal ID, that's a serious offense. The card was clearly marked FBI Athletic Facilities, but Reese chose to see only what served his narrative. Impersonating a federal officer, now we're getting somewhere. Jordan appeared in the doorway holding a file folder. Sir, I have information regarding... Did I call for you? Reese cut them off. One more interruption and you can clean out your desk. Understood. Behind Jordan, Khan returned with another man, Assistant Security Director Marcus Reed. Reese, Reed said, his tone neutral but authoritative. What's the status here? Reese stood straighter, addressing a superior but maintaining his dominance display. Potential security breach. Subject attempted entry with falsified credentials, then presented a counterfeit FBI identification. I'm preparing charges. Reed frowned. Have you run her information through NCIC? I know how to do my job, Reese replied, an edge creeping into his voice. Maybe you should be more concerned about the contractor renewal evaluations coming up. I hear my uncle is quite interested in performance reviews this quarter. The implied threat hung in the air. Reese's uncle, a senior vice president at SecureLink, the security contractor that employed them all. Reed's expression hardened, but he stepped back, choosing his battle carefully. Keep me updated, he said, retreating with Khan in tow. Lena noticed the security camera's indicator light change from steady red to blinking. Executive override activated. Reese positioned himself at the computer terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard with bureaucratic efficiency. Preparing your removal documentation, he announced, satisfaction evident in the upward curl of his mouth. You'll be blacklisted from all federal facilities permanently. He reached for the desk phone, dialing with theatrical deliberation. This is Officer Reese at the Philadelphia Federal Building. I need local police assistance with a trespasser impersonating a federal agent. He recited the address, adding, approach with caution. Subject has shown signs of instability. Grant appeared at the doorway again, determination temporarily overcoming his usual deference. Reese, I've been checking her credentials more thoroughly. He held up a printout. There are inconsistencies with your report. Give me that, Reese interrupted, snatching the paper and scanning it briefly before crumpling it into his pocket. Your security access is temporarily suspended, Grant. Surrender your badge until the situation is resolved. Grant hesitated, hand moving protectively toward his identification. Now, Reese demanded, palm outstretched, or explain to your family how you lost pension eligibility before retirement. The threat landed with precision. Grant slowly unpins his badge, placing it in Reese's waiting hand before retreating, defeat evident in every line of his body. Now wielding both their authorities, Reese returned to the computer with renewed vigor. Let's make this official, he announced, typing rapidly while narrating his fabrications aloud. Subject exhibited aggressive behavior when approached, refused to comply with standard security measures, verbally threatened officer when asked for identification. Lena watched him create his alternate reality, each keystroke digging his professional grave deeper. She decided to use his momentum against him. Why are you doing this? She asked, her tone genuinely curious rather than confrontational. Reese paused, momentarily thrown by the question's simplicity. Doing what? My job. Treating me differently than the others who entered this building. His fingers hovered above the keyboard. I'm applying proper security protocols to a suspicious individual. What made me suspicious? Lena pressed gently. Experience, Reese answered, resuming his typing. Years at this desk teaches you to recognize who belongs and who doesn't. And I don't belong because... The trap was set with such subtlety that Reese walked directly into it. People like you always have an agenda, always trying to get where they shouldn't be, demanding special treatment. His typing grew more forceful, punctuating his words. Someone needs to maintain standards. Someone needs to protect these institutions from being overrun. Each word was another nail in his professional coffin, each syllable captured by the blinking camera above. A commotion in the hallway drew Reese's attention. The local police had arrived, waiting in the lobby as protocol required. Reese stood, straightening his uniform. Wait here, he instructed, gesturing to a young security officer to watch the door. Don't let her leave. The junior officer nodded nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the situation but unwilling to challenge authority. Officer Reese, a commanding voice called from the doorway. I believe you're about to meet the FBI director. Deputy Director Victor Lang stood in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space with authoritative presence. Behind him, several agents in impeccable suits formed a human barrier between the security office and the growing crowd of onlookers in the lobby. Reese turned, irritation flashing across his features at the interruption. His expression shifted to relief when he spotted the FBI credentials displayed on Lang's lapel. Sir, Reese said, straightening his posture. Thank you for responding so quickly. I've detained a woman attempting to infiltrate your facility with falsified credentials. Lang said nothing. He simply stepped aside, creating space for Reese to continue digging his professional grave. She's been belligerent, uncooperative, and presented a counterfeit FBI identification card, Reese continued, warming to his narrative. I've already contacted local police to process her arrest for impersonation of a federal officer. And Officer Reese, Lang interrupted, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who never needed to raise it. Have you ever met FBI Director Lena Harper? Reese's flow of words stopped abruptly, his brain struggling to process the question's implications. The director? No, Lang stepped fully into the room and extended his hand toward Lena. Director Harper, on behalf of the Philadelphia field office, I deeply apologize for this unfortunate reception. The color drained from Reese's face as reality crashed through his carefully constructed narrative. His mouth opened, closed, opened again as Lena rose from her chair, accepting Lang's assistance with quiet dignity. "Deputy Director Lang," she acknowledged with a nod. "I see you received my signal." "Yes, Director, we've been monitoring for some time." Lang turned to Reese, whose complexion had now taken on a grayish hue. "Officer Reese, you've just participated in an unannounced field inspection of security protocols and bias incident response." I was just following standard procedure," Reese stammered, his confident demeanor evaporating like morning dew under harsh sunlight. "The director didn't identify herself properly. I had no way of knowing." "Is threatening to make someone disappear standard procedure, Officer Reese?" Lang asked, removing a tablet from his suit jacket. He tapped the screen and Reese's voice filled the room. "People who don't belong disappear all the time. No one would even look for someone like you." Reese's eyes darted frantically around the room, settling on the security camera he'd forgotten in his power play. The blinking light now seemed to mock him with each pulse. Lena stepped forward, her presence filling the small space despite her modest stature. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of institutional authority and personal resolve. "Officer Reese, during this encounter you have committed multiple separate violations of federal security protocols, numerous violations of civil rights statutes, several instances of abuse of authority, and documented acts of intimidation against fellow security personnel." She listed each offense with methodical precision, like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. "What you don't know," she continued, "is that this field office has registered the highest number of discrimination complaints in the Bureau over recent years, complaints that mysteriously disappear from the system within days of filing." Her gaze was unwavering, unflinching. "Your behavior today wasn't just witnessed by everyone in this room, it was the final piece of evidence in an investigation into systemic discrimination within federal security contractors." Reese's gaze darted to Grant, who stood in the doorway with a mixture of vindication and disbelief etched across his features, to Jordan, whose earlier attempts to intervene now registered as acts of moral courage, to Khan and Reed, observing from a safe distance, their faces unreadable. "I was just doing my job," Reese whispered, the words hollow even to his own ears. "No," Lena corrected him with quiet certainty. "You were abusing your position to indulge personal prejudice, and you've been doing it for years." Lang gestured to two agents who stepped forward. "Officer Reese, please surrender your security credentials and access cards. You are being placed on administrative leave pending full investigation." As the badge was unpinned from his chest, the weight of consequences finally registered in Reese's eyes, the sudden vertiginous drop of a man who had just stepped off a cliff he didn't know was there. "This isn't just about you, Officer Reese," Director Harper said calmly. "This is about everyone who enabled you, and I have a list." The Philadelphia field office transformed into a hive of controlled chaos over the following days. FBI teams in crisp suits moved through the security department with methodical precision, audit tablets in hand. They reviewed access logs, security footage archives, and complaint records with the focused intensity of archaeologists uncovering a long-buried civilization. Reese sat alone in his apartment, tie loosened, shirt rumpled from sleepless hours. His phone vibrated against the coffee table, the latest call from SecureLink executives. He stared at the screen without reaching for it, watching it buzz itself into silence. The message that followed was succinct: "Do not speak to anyone. Legal representation en route." Across town in a glass-walled conference room, SecureLink's crisis management team assembled with grim determination. Senior Vice President Harlan, Officer Reese's uncle, paced the perimeter while corporate attorneys spread documents across the polished table surface. "We'll terminate him immediately," the VP announced to the room. "Issue a statement distancing ourselves from his actions. Make it clear this was an isolated incident, not reflective of company policy." In the FBI's temporary command center, Lena reviewed footage from Reese's employment history. The pattern emerged with unmistakable clarity. Hundreds of non-white visitors subjected to enhanced screening, while their white counterparts passed through with perfunctory checks. The timestamps told their own damning story. Average wait time for white visitors was brief, for minorities significantly longer. "Director," an analyst calls, gesturing toward her screen. "We found something in the financial records." Lena leaned over the display, scanning rapidly. Every discrimination complaint filed against Reese showed the same pattern. Initial documentation, preliminary investigation, then nothing. Cases closed without resolution. Paperwork vanished from the system. "Cross-reference these dates," she instructed, indicating the complaint dismissals with SecureLink's payment records to federal officials. The analyst's fingers flew across the keyboard, data points aligned with damning precision. Multiple complaints disappeared after payments to a consulting firm owned by the former security director's spouse. Reese's phone buzzed again. He answered this time, his uncle's voice immediate and sharp. "Say nothing, admit nothing, we're handling this." "They have recordings," Reese replied, his voice hollow. "Everything I said to her, everything." Silence stretched across the connection before his uncle responded, "Then you're on your own," and the line went dead. Grant sat across from an FBI interviewer, his retirement photo on his desk visible in the background, a reminder of what he stood to lose and what he hoped to preserve. "Yes," he confirmed, voice steady despite his trembling hands. "I witnessed Officer Reese apply different standards based on race consistently throughout our time working together. I reported it multiple times. The complaints disappeared. After one of them, my shift schedule was changed to night duty for an extended period." Jordan provided names, dates, specific incidents, a catalog of abuses witnessed but never formally reported. "We all knew," they admitted, shame evident in their downcast eyes, "but he had protection from above. Anyone who spoke up found themselves reassigned or worse." The evidence mounted hour by hour. Multiple current and former security officers came forward with similar accounts. Security logs revealed systematic patterns of discriminatory treatment. Internal emails between SecureLink executives discussed Reese's approach with knowing euphemisms and tacit approval. In the executive boardroom of SecureLink's headquarters, CEO Gail Winters received the preliminary findings with calculated composure. "This is clearly one rogue employee," she said to the FBI representatives. "We have strict anti-discrimination policies that..." Lena slid a thick file across the polished table surface. "Hundreds of complaints across numerous federal facilities in recent years, all involving your personnel, all mysteriously resolved without action." She opened the file, revealing emails, financial records, and internal memos bearing SecureLink letterhead. "This isn't about one bad apple, Ms. Winters. Your company has systematically buried discrimination complaints, intimidated witnesses, and retaliated against those who spoke up." Winters' corporate mask slipped momentarily before she recovered. "These allegations are concerning. If true, we'll conduct an internal..." "This isn't an allegation," Lena interrupted. "It's evidence of contract fraud, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations. Your company is now under federal investigation." The news broke soon after. "FBI uncovers systematic discrimination in federal security contractor," read the headline. Reese's name appeared in the coverage, his record of abuse summarized in clinical detail. His phone stopped ringing. SecureLink's legal team no longer answered his calls. The union representative responded with a curt email. "Given the overwhelming evidence, we cannot provide representation in this matter." As Reese watched the scandal unfold on his television, more stories emerged. Security officers at facilities across the country came forward with similar accounts. Former employees revealed pressure from management to scrutinize certain profiles more intensively than others. The public reaction was swift and unequivocal. Protests formed outside SecureLink headquarters. Government oversight committees announced emergency hearings. Multiple major federal agencies suspended their contracts pending investigation. Reese turned off the TV, the silence of his apartment pressing against him like a physical weight. The doorbell rang, an unexpected sound in his self-imposed isolation. Through the peephole, he saw two figures in dark suits, their posture unmistakably official. Federal agents stood on his doorstep, warrant in hand, the consequences of years of unchecked power abuse finally crystallizing into this moment of reckoning. As Reese opened the door, he realized too late that his uncle had already struck a deal to save himself. The federal administrative hearing room hummed with restrained energy. Morning light filtered through high windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted like suspended time across the polished wood panels. Reese sat alone at the respondents' table, his court-appointed union representative maintaining a careful distance between them, physical distance mirroring professional disavowal. Across the aisle, the government's table hosted 3 attorneys from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Their preparations were methodical and unhurried. They didn't glance Reese's way. They didn't need to. Their case rested in the evidence binders stacked between them, each page a brick in the wall being built around Reese's career. The side door opened. SecureLink's legal team entered, taking seats in the gallery rather than at Reese's table. Their message was unmistakable. He stood alone. "All rise," the bailiff announced as the 3-member panel entered. The administrative judge, flanked by representatives from the Office of Personnel Management and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, took her seat at the elevated bench. "In the matter of security clearance revocation and employment termination for Officer Harlan Reese," she began, her voice betraying no emotion, "this panel will hear evidence regarding allegations of civil rights violations, abuse of authority, and falsification of federal records." Reese's representative rose, his demeanor already telegraphing defeat. "My client wishes to enter a statement of mitigating circumstances, Your Honor. While not disputing the recorded evidence, Officer Reese maintains that he was following established, if unofficial, protocols consistent with his training. And Your Honor, the lead justice attorney interrupted, rising smoothly. Before the respondent attempts to distribute responsibility, we would like to present evidence that his actions were not only deliberate, but represented a pattern spanning his years of employment. The first witness called was Grant, Reese's former partner. He avoided eye contact as he took the stand, his posture that of a man carrying a heavy burden he was eager to set down. Officer Grant, the attorney began, in your years working alongside the respondent, did you observe differential treatment of visitors based on race or ethnicity? Grant cleared his throat. Yes, consistently. And what happened when you reported these observations? The first time I was told to learn how real security works. The second time my shift was changed to nights for an extended period. After that, he paused, shame evident in his downcast eyes, I stopped reporting it. Throughout the morning, the testimony built, Jordan describing Reese's intimidation tactics, Khan recounting how security complaints mysteriously vanished after being forwarded to SecureLink management, a parade of former visitors sharing similar experiences of humiliation and discrimination at Reese's checkpoint. After a recess, the panel viewed the compiled video evidence, a devastating montage spanning years showing Reese's systematic pattern of differential treatment. The timestamps told their own damning story. White visitors processed quickly, minorities detained for extended random screenings. When Reese finally took the stand, desperation had replaced his former arrogance. His eyes darted around the room, searching for a sympathetic face and finding none. I was just being thorough, he insisted, voice cracking under pressure. Security requires judgment calls. Some profiles require additional scrutiny based on statistical risk factors. What specific risk factors led you to detain Director Harper? The attorney asked. Reese hesitated, the trap evident but unavoidable. She didn't look like she belonged there. Didn't look like she belonged, the attorney repeated, letting the words hang in the air. And what exactly does someone who belongs in a federal building look like, Officer Reese? The question remained unanswered as the attorney played the recording of Reese's threats to make Lena disappear. The room fell silent, the naked prejudice in his voice echoing off wood-paneled walls. In his closing statement, Reese abandoned his prepared remarks, desperation fracturing his composure. Everyone does it, he blurted out. I'm just the one who got caught. There's an understanding about who gets extra scrutiny. It comes from the top down. The panel deliberated briefly before returning their unanimous decision. Termination effective immediately. Security clearance permanently revoked. Pension rights forfeited. Referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal charges of civil rights violations, threatening a federal officer, and falsification of official records. As Reese exited the hearing room, a process server waited in the hallway with civil suit papers. Outside, he discovered his car had been repossessed overnight, the first domino in the financial collapse that followed termination. His phone rang. The display showed an unknown caller. Uncle Robert, he answered hopefully. This is SecureLink Legal, a cold voice responded. We're calling to inform you that your company-provided health insurance terminated at midnight. Any statements you make regarding company policies will constitute a violation of your non-disclosure agreement. The line went dead before he could respond. As Reese reached his empty parking space, a news crew spotted him, cameras turning toward his face like predators scenting blood. In the time that followed, the Philadelphia FBI field office security checkpoint gleamed under new lighting. Gone were the intimidating dark corners and isolated screening rooms. In their place stood an open concept design with transparent privacy screens and clearly posted procedures in multiple languages. Jordan, now wearing the insignia of compliance officer, conducted a training session for newly hired security personnel. The touchstone of our approach is consistency, they explained, gesturing to the flowchart displayed on the wall monitor. Every visitor receives identical screening steps regardless of appearance, accent, or attire. The trainees, a visibly diverse group, took notes. Our metrics are now publicly displayed, average wait times, secondary screening percentages, complaint resolution rates, all updated in real time and reviewed daily. Across the building, Grant led an internal affairs briefing, his former discomfort replaced with purposeful authority. The new reporting system bypasses contractor management entirely, he explained to field office security liaison. Complaints go simultaneously to FBI oversight and an independent civil rights monitoring group. A split screen showed the parallel transformation occurring nationwide, security checkpoints renovated for transparency, guards receiving implicit bias training, visitors encountering clearly posted rights information at every entrance. At SecureLink headquarters, the logo had been changed, the company rebranded as Unified Security Solutions following the settlement that mandated new ownership and management. Federal monitors occupied offices on the executive floor, reviewing every policy change, every hiring decision, every complaint resolution. On Capitol Hill, Lena testified before the House Oversight Committee, her composed demeanor a counterpoint to the charged atmosphere. Director Harper, the committee chair asked, Was your experience at the Philadelphia field office truly a random inspection, or were you specifically investigating Officer Reese? Neither, Congressman, Lena responded. My visit was part of a coordinated effort following patterns we identified in dismissed complaints. After multiple minority complainants reported being threatened with disappearance at that checkpoint, we recognized that documenting the behavior would require experiencing it firsthand. The hearing revealed that Reese was merely the most visible symptom of a systemic disease. Statistics scrolled across the committee room displays a significant percentage of minority visitors subjected to enhanced screening compared to white visitors. Average detention time significantly longer for non-white individuals. Complaint dismissal rates showing unmistakable racial disparities. The resulting legislation passed with rare bipartisan support. The Federal Facility Equal Access Act established independent oversight of security contractors, mandated body cameras for all checkpoint personnel, created a publicly accessible complaint tracking system, and required annual certification in non-discriminatory practices. News montages showed security companies nationwide implementing proactive reforms, corporate executives suddenly discovering the urgent importance of diversity initiatives and bias training. The statistics told their own story of grudging improvement. Discrimination complaints down substantially across federal facilities. Processing time disparities reduced markedly. Visitor satisfaction ratings rising steadily across demographic groups. Meanwhile, Reese applied for a minimum wage security position at a suburban shopping mall. The hiring manager's expression shifted as she reviewed his application, recognition dawning in her eyes. Harlan Reese, aren't you that guy from the news? The one who threatened the FBI director? He left without a response. Another rejection added to the growing pile. As former security corporations scrambled to rebrand, Lena quietly prepared her next undercover operation targeting federal housing discrimination. Later, Lena stepped through the revolving doors of the Philadelphia FBI field office. The transformation was immediately apparent, not just in the physical space with its redesigned security area and transparent protocols, but in the atmosphere itself. Gone was the tension that once hummed beneath the surface like faulty wiring. In its place rested a steady current of professional focus. The security team that greeted her reflected the full spectrum of American diversity. Officer Mendez processed her credentials with efficient courtesy, maintaining the same procedural rhythm he used for every visitor. The standardized greeting, the consistent eye contact, the respectful tone, all applied without variation, without exception. "Good morning, Director Harper," he said, returning her identification. "You're expected in conference room 3. Where Reese's desk once dominated the entrance, an information kiosk now stood, staffed by a rotating team of security personnel providing visitor guidance. The prominently displayed digital dashboard showed real-time metrics. Average wait time currently brief, secondary screening rate low, active complaints 0, resolved issues several. Jordan met her at the elevator, their former nervousness replaced with quiet confidence. "Director, we've prepared the quarterly compliance report as requested." In the conference room, Grant and Khan awaited with Reed, who now served as ethics liaison between security contractors and federal oversight. The conversation flowed easily as they shared implementation challenges and unexpected successes. "The most surprising outcome," Khan noted, "has been the improvement in security effectiveness. When officers stopped focusing on profile-based screening and started applying consistent protocols, they actually identified more genuine security issues." Grant nodded in agreement. "Last month, a white businessman in an expensive suit set off several red flags in our behavioral screening that would have been overlooked in the old system. Turned out he was attempting industrial espionage." Reed added, "The standardized approach has spread beyond this building. I'm now training security officers nationwide on our protocols." The scene shifts to a dimly lit warehouse across town. Reese, now considerably thinner, patrolled empty corridors as a night watchman, the only employment his tarnished record could secure. He passed a break room where a small television broadcast an interview with the FBI director discussing the sweeping reforms implemented in federal security. The Reese incident, the anchor called it, the capitalization audible in his tone, had become a watershed moment in federal civil rights enforcement. Reese's face hardened as he watched his legacy take shape, not as the protector of institutions he imagined himself to be, but as the cautionary example, the case study in abuse of power that officers in training now examined. He continued his rounds, passing his reflection in darkened windows, a ghost drifting through spaces where he no longer mattered. Back at the field office, Lena concluded her visit with a walk through the main lobby. She observed a young black woman entering the building, receiving the same professional treatment as the white executive who followed her. No extra scrutiny, no power plays, no humiliation disguised as procedure. The woman moved through security without incident, without trauma, without being made to feel less than, exactly as it should be. Outside another federal building in another city, Lena approached security without her credentials displayed. The officer, a young black woman, greeted her with the same standardized welcome used for all visitors. ID and purpose of visit, please, she requested professionally. Lena presented her identification, which the officer processed with efficient courtesy, unaware she was interacting with the FBI director. Just another visitor receiving equal treatment under standardized protocols. Lena smiled as she passed through, noting how things should have always been. True power isn't about making others disappear, it's about ensuring everyone is finally seen. Don't miss another moment of justice served. Hit that subscribe button and join the Beat Stories community where we expose power abusers and celebrate those who stand their ground. Like, comment, and share if you believe in accountability at every level. Turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly drops of satisfying justice stories that prove karma is real. And sometimes she wears a badge. Beat Stories. Because some beats are best served with justice.